have one.
It's 6:33. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Marquette Township Board regularly scheduled meeting. It's Tuesday, September 19th, 2017, and we'd be happy if you join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk Rattari.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Wiegand.
Here.
Trustee Everson.
Here.
Trustee Marks.
Present.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Staff present is Manager Gerard, our Township Attorney, Roger Zappa, Fire Chief, Ron DeMars, and Superintendent of Public Works, Kirk Page, is here. Committee member here is Mike Springer from Planning, Recreation, and Roads.
Okay, thank you for that. Next up is public comment. Ron, I think we're going to move you down just a little bit, just so we can get through the consent agenda. Is that all right? Do you have to go? Okay, because Jason wants to. Yes, okay. Then we talk in shorthand. All right, any public that wishes to address us can come up to either. We only have one
I
microphone
just put
tonight.
one out tonight, so.
Nobody wants to, nothing to share, Mike? You're good? Okay. Pass that. And board member comment. Since there is no comment to go with the public, I mean, you're welcome to speak now, but it's gauged for that. We can speak later. Okay, see, Ernie, how I just checked these off? Isn't this great? It's short.
So far.
Consent agenda. I do want to talk about one thing, but I will read everything first. Tonight's consent agenda consists of the approval of regular meeting minutes of September 5th, the bills payable, checks numbers 155430 to 155494 in the amount of $597,214.80, and the 2017 tax rates request to county for township. Received committee reports and other reports, including the sheriff's report from August. I noticed that was kind of light, which I guess is good for our community. Fire department business meeting draft minutes of August 14th, as well as the officers meeting minutes. Peter White Public Library Township Advisory Council minutes of June 7th. The planning minutes of June 14th and July 12th. Water production report of August. I didn't have anything. I do have a couple individual notes for in a minute. Financials for August. Correspondence not requiring board action is State of Michigan public hearing for Semco Energy on September 20th. Change, which is tomorrow, our board meeting from November 7th to November 8th due to the election. And before we approve that, then I just want to pull, my clerk's telling me I don't have to actually pull it out to talk about the tax rates, just briefly, before we approve this. I'd like to take a second if we have an opportunity to do any education. So I asked Randy if he could pull it up, which he did, just to show the public. I've talked to you before about your tax bills, and for all of those of you who have their taxes escrowed and don't even see a tax bill, you are totally welcome to call the township at any time or the county and ask them questions about their millage items and find out what you're paying in your taxes. And there are things that are important to you, whether it's the rescue, the fire department, the ambulance we're doing, the trails, the Heritage Trail, special education, the road millage. Obviously, we're all paying school taxes of some kind, but there are a lot of different things on your tax bills, and these are the items that we have to approve, and we're going to do that shortly, every year to tell the government what we're doing. What are we, I hate to say assessing, because they're not assessments, they're, well, a couple of them are. They're taxes. But what are we charging the public for our services? I've had numerous people, especially developers, come in and say that the township taxes are exorbitantly high, okay? This is all we're asking the public for. There's not much. Our operating is less than 5 mils. We've got the road millage and the things that are important to the public. This is what they've said that they want to do. So I just kind of wanted to have this on the record and show the public what this document looks like. Because like I said, we are going to approve it tonight. It's got the library on it. It tells the number that's actually voted on and then what the Headley rollback is, and that's a big old long explanation I'm not going to get into, but I just kind of wanted to take a second to educate people because nobody knows what their tax bills look like, and when they get those funny forms that say they can come in and talk to us, they don't know what that all means. So I just wanted to point that out. And I had talked to you before about our tax bills. I just want to rattle these off real quickly. County transit, county aging, county MOE, not sure what that is, county dispatch, county rescue, county vet, ISD, special education, Marquette school operating, Marquette school debt, Marquette school sinking fund. And then our taxes, our operating, our library, our fire, our road, and then the Heritage Trail. That's actually separate from this. But there's a lot of stuff on your tax bills that is not from the township. And it's great that everybody is supporting these things. I'm not knocking them by any means, but I just want to take a second and point that out to you. I think that's very important. Okay, now I'm looking for approval of that consent agenda.
I'll support, and I got a comment. On the November 7th change, I made the executive decision for that. If the board does not want to meet on Wednesday, that's up to you, but that's probably better for me because Monday is kind of a busy day before the election. So if that's okay with the board, it'll stand as Wednesday. And I'll make the change in the paper.
Okay,
Lynn, I got a question.
sure.
On your sheriff's report, saying new sheriffs in town, but our tickets are gone up, probably higher now than they have been before. So I don't know where, I'd like to know where they're getting them from. Is it inside the township or on the highways or wherever? But it's, for years, we're kind of low on that, one or two and all the stops. So just watch your driving because we do have a new sheriff and he wants it, we've told him that, I guess, that we want the speeders and there's more things going on in the township that have never been corrected before, so.
Yep,
I just want to make that out because the numbers are going up higher, so.
yep, that's good. That was part of our meeting with the sheriff and undersheriff. Randy and I visited with them when they first came on board, and we said, we want to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to in the township. And we wanted them to patrol. So that's
Did he ever
good.
say anything about coming to a meeting?
Yep, they said they would, so.
Good.
The county meeting is the same night as ours, and that's part of the problem. But he said he would try to, either he or the undersheriff would try to schedule, one of them stay and one leave or something like that.
Okay, good.
So we might just have to kind of remind them. But yeah, they said anytime. Okay, so John, you're okay, he wanted to make the
Yep.
change, and that's okay? All right, now we want to
Not
do
a-
this,
But
It's not a change, it's just asking if it's okay.
yeah, but you made the motion, so I just wanted to make sure it was okay with you. And
Well,
then we want a roll call
we'll
vote.
do a roll call because we have the tax document in there, so. Trustee Marks.
Yes,
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue.
Yes,
Trustee Wiegand.
Yes.
Trustee Everson.
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson.
yes.
And Supervisor Durant.
Yes,
Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved.
thank you.
Lynn?
Sir?
Just
Yes,
a,
Randy.
just a reminder for the board, you will be seeing this again, the tax levy, when you adopt your budget. You also adopt truth in taxation, which is the tax levy. The only reason you're seeing it now is because it has to be submitted to the county by the 29th of September. So you will have a public hearing along with your budget at the same time on the tax levy.
Okay. Then we need approval of the agenda, and this is when I'm actually supposed to ask if there are any conflicts of interest that we need to declare. Otherwise, approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So we'll put our two of our staff reports, and actually Kirk, if you want to too, we'll have Ron and Jason under Board Education, because that's kind of what you're doing. So Ron, I think you wanted to go first to share a few things.
I gave everybody our report, which was just completed at about 4:30 this afternoon. The only items I wanted, excuse me, to highlight on, if you look at page 2, I want to announce, I think the board is well aware, it was publicized in the paper and the news. We were fortunate. We got a grant to total $103,658 for new radios that we desperately needed. The ones that we're carrying now are obsolete, and if certain components failed, there is no source to repair them and replace them. We matched 5% of that grant, which was $4,936. So, and fortunately for us, we're allowed to, this grant period is actually going to run from this September all the way through next September. So my plan is to actually budget for and to purchase the radios in 2018. Everyone, I think, is well aware that our budget is pretty tight. So we've got some concerns with still building with the ambulance and getting that up and running. So we've got the grant. We're not under any real deadline. We're still, in fact, working with FEMA, still exchanging documents back and forth on the grant, the acceptance, and then we need to provide them with some additional financial information, so, which is routine with any of these FEMA grants. But we're fortunate, we're certainly happy. There was no way we were going to purchase this amount of radios under our current budget or even in the 2018 budget without the FEMA grant, so very lucky there. And I'm happy to tell the board our ambulance is officially in service. We have completed 8 calls with the ambulance since it went online about 2 o'clock in the afternoon last Thursday. And we've been pretty busy ever since. We're still working with our billing agent, our billing company down in Lower Michigan, and with Duke LifePoint. When we transport somebody in an ALS type incident, we take one of the Duke LifePoint medics, get on board with us, and when that happens, we bill the whole bill, and then we break out the ALS portion of it. So there's paperwork going back and forth. We'll probably be pretty intense in the paperwork and the rollout on this through the end of this week anyway. It's been pretty much consuming 8 hours every day all week long. So, but we're up, we're running, and we've had lots of comments from both public and the commercial buildings where we're responding to the calls. And happy to see the ambulance. It runs great. We're pretty fortunate. We got a nice vehicle with relatively low miles, so we're happy. And then number 13 in my report was Central Dispatch Policy Board. I'm on the policy board for Central Dispatch. I was happy to hear it looks like the Central Dispatch had a bit of a cost savings. They just went through a major upgrade of their 800 system, and Gary has about $25,000 in funds that weren't expended on this whole rollout and upgrade that they've done over the last year, and he's going to be at the county board tonight asking them if he can use that $25,000 to help defray the licensing costs. And for us, that's big, because licensing, that's all of our terminals and tablets in the trucks. What this is going to allow is AVL, which is automatic vehicle location. Central will know where we are at all times. It also allows us to communicate directly with EMS back and forth, and it'll allow us to communicate with our people on the scene better through the VHF radios we got. So we're pretty excited. It's going to be it'll cut our push-to-talks under this new system when it's fully implemented. When we get a call, when our apparatus leaves the station, it breaks the plane of the sensor in the station. It puts us en route. We don't have to talk to Central. When we get on scene, we don't have to talk to Central. It'll show us within 100 yards or 100 feet proximity of that incident, it'll put us out. When we leave the scene, we just leave the scene, it'll sense that the vehicle's in motion again, it'll put us en route. When we get to the station, we back in and puts us out of service. And that cuts, you can imagine, for the dispatcher at Central, that takes a huge load off of them. They can have 50 push-to-talks on one incident, is not unheard of. So it's really going to be a win-win for everybody. Our mapping system will be greatly improved. It'll know the vehicle location anytime. If we go on a mutual aid and we're not sure of an address, we punch that address in. It's just like Google Maps. It's going to route us exactly to that incident. So we're excited. This is a huge step for us. So we've had the terminals for a year. We use it for all of our pre-fire planning of our buildings. We keep all the emergency contact numbers in there for businesses. If we arrive at Walmart, Walmart's 24 hours. If we arrive at Target or some of the stores at 2 a.m. for a fire alarm, we can let ourselves in the building. We have all the contact numbers. We'll call Target's, headquarters in Minneapolis. They'll send a staff member over to secure the building with us when we're done. So this is, we're making some pretty nice progress here. Pretty exciting year. So, any other questions on the report?
Anything for Ron?
Okay, thank
Cool.
you.
Thank you. Mr. Jason, you're up.
Good evening. I have just two requests for you tonight. One, as we are ramping up or finishing up our fundraising efforts for the proposed US 41 underpass project, we would like to have a meeting in the community room on Monday, September 25th at 6 p.m. And this would be an informational meeting to invite the public to basically have a presentation on where this project came from, how it got into the master plan, the various user groups, state, local agencies that are interested in this project, including sitting senators, to make this project happen. And we'd like to do that at 6 p.m. on Monday the 25th with your concurrence. The second request is that I haven't heard that the board has applied for any of the second round of 2% funds from the KBIC tribe. And with your concurrence on that, the deadline for that application is October 1. And I would like to, if there are no other pressing issues from the board, apply for another round to assist us with fundraising and match funding for the underpass. And if there are any questions on that or my previous requests, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, Jason had asked me if I'd be willing to bring this up because we hadn't really talked about it at all. And I said, absolutely. If anybody has any objections or questions, what we'd like to do, or he'd like to do, is approach KBIC, or actually any other ones, but primarily them, to apply for the 2% funding, which they do twice a year. So he didn't want to take that initiative without some kind of direction from us. Yes or
Good
no?
move. I think you should.
Thoughts, questions?
Is there anything else that we're thinking about applying for through that organization?
Not at the moment.
Yeah, probably not now.
Well, we have one,
We'd all,
one
yeah.
online is, I don't have any objection as long as nobody puts a priority on this over our previous request.
They kind of do each request separately anyway, right? They look at
Right.
each one.
Correct.
whatever
I've been in
the
contact
priority
with the
is.
tribe about what our situation is, and they suggested reapplying for additional funds.
So we need to write a letter of request?
Nope, I would submit a very similar application that I did in April, but with an update that we have received conditional approval for $2.5 million from MDOT, that we received our preliminary score for our MNRTF grant, and our score is good. We have the opportunity to improve that score between now and October 2nd. And that we did put the feelers out to the DNR and to MDOT to let them know that we foresee a shortfall in our fundraising and our match monies. They are currently investigating other opportunities because these agencies want this project to happen. So we're hoping that collectively, when we add up all of our charitable contributions, grant monies, and local match, that we'll be able to move forward.
I did get a call from Gary Peters' office, and they said, I didn't talk to him specifically, but they will do whatever they can to help us if, what's within their reasons, as far as money or resources or correspondence or letters or whatever they need to do. They're willing to help with this because they think this is very important.
Yeah, we've been shaking all the trees. We contacted the governor's office to inquire about the Belle Isle initiative, the trail initiative. They are providing $30,000 grants for specific segments of the trail that's already out there and mapped, but they don't have anything to provide for spurs off of the trail or to, connecting to the trail. So we extinguished that resource, and we'll continue to extinguish resources until October 2nd. But we feel confident that we're all going to come together and something good's going to happen here.
So the gaming funds, I think sometimes they have specific things that they want to contribute to. So in some cases, even with the school, they'll just say, take this money, you can do what you want with it, or, other organizations. So if we were to get whatever number, 10,000, 5,000, 50,000, would there be a case in your knowledge of just letting us do what we want with it, or are they still pretty specific on granting certain money for certain projects?
I suspect they'll be pretty pointed with their contribution if they do make one. We've had such a good relationship with Menards and actually confirmed our additional easement request with them that'll tie into the AT&T easement. The snowmobile trail number 14 connecting Marquette to Big Bay has actually made a request to this year relocate the trail in the approximate area where the trail from Iron Ore Heritage Trail would be to the tunnel and crossing over the highway at that location. And that is the map right there.
I don't know if John can see this. It's kind of small. You tell me.
And that is to get people in the mindset of where the tunnel will be located, although they will daylight up on top of AT&T's property, go across the highway there, and then drop back down where the tunnel would daylight on the north end, continue north because we already have those easements verbally in place. We just need to execute the easement agreements. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good move to try to continue to push forward with fundraising efforts. And, my goal, of course, was always to come back to you with there being zero balance to make up from general fund. And that's still our goal.
Jason,
Yes, sir.
when you apply for the 2%, you have to write in there what you want it for, correct?
Yeah,
If
I'm
they
sorry, I
feel
got off
bound-
track there. Getting back to my initial, our relationship with Menards and the easements that we have on the west side of Menards and on the east side of Menards both serve the tribal gas station very well. And so obviously there is a clear relationship with the snowmobile trail, their subsequent creation of a quasi trailhead at the gas station where people can pull up their truck and trailer, unload their snowmobiles, and use our trail system in the winter. So it makes a lot of sense for them to assist with the project in any way that they can to bolster their revenue at the gas station, if you will. That's just cut and dry business. Yeah.
Anything else for Jason? Does somebody want to make a motion, or do you just need consensus?
Just
or-
consensus is fine.
Everybody agree? Okay, lots of
Thank
shaking
you.
heads.
Thanks, board.
One more
Appreciate it.
question, Jace.
Yes.
You had a meeting this morning that you attended?
Yeah, I attended the Eggs and Issues at the Cafe Bodega with the guest speaker today was Mike Angeli, the city manager. I appreciated that opportunity. Thanks to Manager Gerard, who was, I believe, double booked this morning. He asked if I would go in his stead, in which I did. And the city manager provided a number of updates on the road projects, the hospital, installing new electronic water meters to capture water loss that they believe is occurring in the city. And by water loss, I mean just lost revenue, essentially, and these are supposed to be more accurate. They also let people know or sound an alarm when the ground is going to be freezing and they need to turn the heat up or turn the water on. They also will notify you if, in case there is a break in a lateral. It talked about, what else? All the roundabout situations and traffic, of course, but I relayed the summer that the entire frontage of US 2 across the city of Ashland was redone, and it was a wicked summer. We had a lot of business complaints and people losing business, but once that project was done, and I reminded them once the project was complete that there will be a much better product for people out in front, and that's true with the city of Marquette too. So. They also asked that somebody from the township, I know Lynn has presented previously there at that meeting, and they asked if either Randy or Lynn and I would be willing to participate in that. And there was a couple of other city council men there, and a couple of business people that I didn't know offhand, but was introduced to. So it's a good opportunity to network and share, I guess, war stories about issues and opportunities that we have, not only in our respective communities, but that relate to both of our communities. So I would be more than happy to present if the board wants me to, but that was the gist of the meeting. So it was about an hour or so, and then a little bit of Q&A afterwards. I asked if the city lobbyist was working with regard to the proposed legislation to deregulate the ability for municipalities to regulate short-term rentals. And they said that they were closely monitoring that, and that if the short-term rentals were taken on by the state and deregulated at the local municipality level, that they would seek to have an amendment to that bill to add some kind of local tax that would be similar to what the hotels are charged for commercial property. So I thought that was very interesting.
Any questions for Jace? Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I wanted to share real quick is that we got an email, I think it was from Bill Fahey, I'm not sure where Jason or where Randy got it. I ended up getting one about the Supreme Court hearing next month, October 12th or
12th.
something.
1 o'clock on the
Down in
12th.
Lansing, yeah, after lunch, and I said, gee, it'd be nice if somebody could be there. So I asked Randy or if Dulcie could go or something, you know, and he was gracious enough to say he'd go, which is good. We called Dennis while we were in the office, and Dennis said, yeah, I could probably run over there. And we're not allowed to speak at all. There's no public comment. And Fahey said that he even had to type something up. There's no reading of anything, but I think just even having people in the audience will have an impact, because this is the tribunal's argument with Menards and Escanaba, if you remember. So he's going to attend that and come back with at least some kind of news. I don't know that they don't make a decision right there and then, do they?
No, I've not been to a Supreme Court hearing before. We've been to several Court of Appeals, but basically what has occurred to this point is, as you'll recall, basically the Menards filed the tax tribunal big box case against the city of Escanaba. The city of Escanaba took it to the tribunal and was successful. So the difference here, when we went to the Court of Appeals, we were challenging the tribunal's decision as being incorrect. The difference with this one is the Menards case is going forward, and we're arguing that the decision that the tribunal made in that case was correct and should be the basis for the dark store issue going forward. The Court of Appeals held in favor of the city of Escanaba, denied the request of Menards, and retained their tax status, their full tax status. They did not reduce it at all. So that is the case that's before the Supreme Court. There have been multiple briefs that have been filed. Mr. Fahey, who represented us in the Court of Appeals case, represented us and I think 12 other local governments in a brief. We filed a brief in support of the city of Escanaba. The county association's attorney, Jack Van Koevering, filed a brief on behalf of a group of counties, a little bit different. They took a little bit different position, but essentially the same outcome. They wanted the Menards case to be denied, but for a different reason. They wanted a stronger case going forward, and we didn't understand why that was. So that's why we participated with another group and filed a different brief. There is a possibility the judges always have the opportunity to ask questions and to seek additional information at the hearing, and that's why Dennis and I are going to go on our behalf, and we've been involved in it now for almost 7 years, and have talked to numerous other cities, counties, states, townships. Dennis has even become kind of an expert in presenting to other groups. So Bill Fahey suggested that it would be a good idea for us to be there just in case. So that's the reason we're going down. It'll be a one-day thing, down in the morning, back that night. The hearing's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a Thursday. I believe it's a Thursday, the 12th of October. So it wouldn't be out of the office for that long, and it may be very beneficial to us going forward.
Just having a presence there too, I think.
Well, if the Supreme Court supports the Escanaba position and denies Menard's case, that sets the parameter that there is no more dark store going forward. It will not cure what's already happened, but if and when, like Gander Mountain and MC Sports, if those businesses change hands, we have been continuing to increase their taxable value, their assessed value. So if it uncaps, it goes back to the full tax value. So that's our hope in the long run, that some of these businesses will change hands and that will uncap them for taxes, which means they go back to the actual tax rate. But going forward, any of the new businesses like Myers, Up the Sky, any of those other businesses that are in the hopper would not have the ability of the dark store argument if the Supreme Court's decision supports the city of Escanaba.
So I thought you'd like that update too. Lots of things going on. This is pretty exciting. I think that's all we had there. Yes, Pete.
There's no way that they can change the tax and assessing from this day on. So it's a court case says, okay, we're not gonna do it no longer. Can our assessors go back and reassess it to back where it was before?
There is a theory, and it's an untested theory. I don't know if it would hold any water or not, but there is a theory that if the Supreme Court were to take a position that the tax tribunal didn't simply make an error but misapplied the law, then that may open a door for some of the communities to challenge the decision as a basis that it was made in violation of the law. Possible. Don't know how that would actually go, but that has been discussed as a possibility.
So I think you all got in your packets too, before I forget, the breakdown from 2009 to 2016. Yeah.
16.
It didn't fit real well in the packet, the physical packet, so it is in the online packet so that the public can see what it is. And the abbreviated, I have the county version if anybody wants to see it. It's like this many pages and it's huge. And they will update that for us. But just our operating, just that 4.905, I think, that the township has to run, $264,000 out of the general fund since 2009. Just that part. Fire department lost $134,851. The roads lost $50,000, 53. Let's see what else. DDA lost 3,300. And the library lost 48,000. That's not happy. So total Marquette Township, 479,787 that we lost since this started. Not counting legal fees.
Oh, no, it doesn't include legal fees or any of the staff costs.
Sure. That's just the tax part. Okay. Community linkage. I was going to ask Jason one more question I forgot. it's been brought up, and I believe Pete might have some thoughts on this too, that we consider, not necessarily tonight, but something along the lines of an ordinance for panhandling. So we can discuss this later. I just kind of want to have you think about that, and maybe that's not the correct term to use. I don't know, but
It is.
I've gotten some complaints
Or
for people standing outside in a couple cases on private property, in front of Lowe's, on their property, in front of Super One, in front of Target, on their property. And in those cases, the people who object to that would have to deal with those businesses. They'd have to call Target or Super One and say, hey, I'm offended by you allowing these people to be on your property. As of right now, most of them are in the rights of way, or they're on the easement areas or
on the
something.
county property,
Yes,
and the soliciting.
yes.
Okay, thanks.
Panhandling, I guess, is right, what it's called. Yes, Randy?
Are we gonna have Kirk under board education?
That's up to him, yeah. Do you want to speak now, or wait till the staff reports, then you can go home? Sure, that's great, thanks, Randy.
Oh, come on.
I should have written you down. I had asked you if you wanted to do that.
So I'm not sure exactly where we are on the agenda, but I'll start with the department report first. First of all, maybe I've already done this, but our water supply was awarded the best tasting water in the Upper Peninsula a few weeks ago. And last week we went downstate, or I should say, Lenny Bodinas went downstate to the state conference, and we competed against 4 downstate communities. And they don't announce all the standings, but Ann Arbor won the downstate, well, statewide, I should say. So I believe we've only entered twice, and we won twice. So it's a program that's been in existence for a while. It was just the DEQ and the American Water Works Association have just kind of developed this as basically a promotional event to kind of promote the value of water. And I asked a question. There was a presentation about the history of it as well, and so the UP is due for another win. So we'll try again next year. We do have a new staff person that started after Labor Day, Chad, who's been with us in Buildings and Grounds for quite a while. So he's now a service worker. We're still, although it's slowed down a little bit, we're still doing new grinder hookups from this year's project and actually previous year's projects as well. We've also been doing quite a few grinder replacements. So we've been doing kind of routine replacements for ones that, have problems for whatever reason the alarm goes out. So what we do is we basically just swap the pump out, take the old one to the shop to do the repairs. But we're doing some planned replacements on some of our models. We've basically been doing this since the early 90s. The Trowbridge Park sewer project, we got, I believe it was basically a 40% grant, and we got an extra 10% for basically for putting grinders in. It was considered innovative and alternative at that time. And they have worked pretty well. We've got probably the best company and the best pumps out there. But the company is continually making improvements. So we're actually working on right now, our 3rd model of this pump. The first model went in during the project. There was Model 2 that maybe had some improvements, but the reliability has been not quite as good as Models 1 and 3. So those we've been periodically replacing when we get the chance. And speaking of pump replacements, we also replaced one of the 2 pumps at our lift station on Wright Street that was also installed in the early 90s. It's been pretty beat up, and we actually ended up purchased a new one that was actually less costly than getting the old one repaired. And it only costs like $15,000. I shouldn't say only, but it costs $15,000. But it's a lower horsepower, but it pumps the same. It's got the same capacity. So we're anticipating a lower, electrical cost. In fact, according to the daily readings I'm getting, it's using no electricity, which of course is not possible, but it's way less than pump number 2. We're still making, and this has slowed down as well, but we're still making some plan reviews for some new stuff that's hasn't proposed to be started this year yet. Myers, the main store at Myers, the outside water and sewer mains are complete, and the stormwater. The Myers convenience store, it's still in the process right now. So, and also the Freco showroom is still, the mains are still in progress. So that's pretty much the highlights. Well, now that the road project is over, we're spending way less time out there. We had a bit of a problem. We have to locate every time the contract wants to do anything, and it was kind of a typical project that we have to locate multiple times because the stakes disappear, and we came up with a punch list earlier this week or late last week, I forget, that was still, now that the work is done, we still have some problems that have to be corrected. And it's actually the contractor's responsibility to maintain all those stakes, both the misdig stakes and the construction stakes. But again, it's pretty typical that they disappear and things happen. So, but we're definitely on the hopefully the last legs of that project. We did, in conjunction with that, we did replace in the project area one valve and one hydrant. And right on the edge of the project, we replaced a second hydrant. So that's work that would have been done, had we done our water project. So, so that's pretty much the highlights of the department. Any questions about that?
Yes, Pete?
Kirk, how you doing on your water change outs?
Meters?
Your water meters.
Oh, really well. They're about 99%
Right? Good.
complete. Yeah. And actually, I was going to discuss that. I don't have it in front of me. I misplaced my packet, but the water production report. You may have noticed that there's a huge drop in the water we're purchasing from Marquette. So, in the project that Jason mentioned, that you heard from the city manager this morning, that's in relation to the Johnson Controls project, which is going to impact us through the wastewater plant. The wastewater plant, I forget the exact number, seems like it's 1.2 million. But the metering, it's interesting that they're including the metering because they have not done that with their master meters. So, and you recall, it was quite a while ago, you wanted to start looking at the sold versus the produced. Well, the first month that I presented that, everybody kind of went wild and said that's not possible. Well, again, there is a problem with that, and it's not, and we have really done a lot of investigation. Because initially I thought, okay, last year in the Cox District we had a big break, and we replaced one of our master meters with a new smart meter. So I thought, okay, that would account for some of the decrease in the purchase. But the wells have decreased as well, but not as much as the water we're buying from the city. So we did discover we've got 2 meters on Meeski Avenue, one coming from the city and one going back to the city from the township. And actually Johnson Controls, are actually a subcontractor, tested the city meters as part of that project. Normally we jointly test meters with the city. They contract it out every year. And so they test theirs, we test ours. This year that didn't happen, so Johnson Controls showed up, started testing meters, and so in any case, we discovered like 3 months later that there's a bypass valve that is normally open when they're testing these meters. And it was open, and this is back in May. That bypass valve was never closed. So you still had water going through both meters, but it wasn't being registered. So on top of that, because of all the city construction, they have been utilizing our Cox Reservoir to supply water to the Cox District in the city. And actually, for several years now, ever since we had that contract dispute with the city, they have gone to great lengths. And I'm not talking about the staff, I'm talking about the politicians and the upper management. Have been going to great lengths to prove that they do not need, the Cox Reservoir. I mean, the systems were designed that way. So they've relied on the mountain tank, which is where we've been getting our water normally. But now, we don't get it from the mountain tank. We get it from Lincoln, so it has to be pumped from Lincoln. But what's happening is they are, again, maintaining service in the Cox District on the other side of that boundary. So basically, the tank is kept pretty full all the time. But it's not, so we are consuming water, possibly less than we did last year, but still not a huge difference. So it's all going back to the city. So basically, there's a lot of, it's essentially recirculating. So that would account for some of the discrepancies. So I just looked at, for example, I believe it was the month of July, the sales. And in that district, it was like 1,200%. Okay. More was sold than we purchased. And in fact, I believe that's on the report that I did give you for that month. It was like, what was it, 300 some thousand gallons that we purchased, which is, but our actual sales to our customers didn't go down that same amount. So there's a huge difference there. But when you balance it out with the well district, there's still a discrepancy, but it's mainly being skewed by the Cox District. So I'm not going to give you those numbers until it gets sorted out. So, I mean, there's going to be a natural reduction in use overall, just because it's the wet season. But these numbers are extreme. And you said they're not possible, but it is possible, because all we're doing is measuring water. So
how do you see fixing the numbers? How is it
I
just
can't
a
fix
matter-
the numbers. The numbers are the numbers.
But I mean,
And the problem is I can't control how water is sent to us. So, I mean, the contract says they have to supply water, but, I mean, it's to our benefit, because essentially that means we have to pay for that water. So consequently, that line item, which that's wreaking havoc to my budget as well, because I'm looking at the numbers. There's no way I can budget that low of a number for next year. So next year, I'm going to budget what I budgeted for this year, and hopefully it'll be sorted out by then. But, so that's kind of a long-winded explanation of our problem, which is kind of complicated. It really took a while to sort this down, because the city had no idea either, what was going on. So,
Okay, well, keep us updated.
I mean, obviously, they would certainly like to recover revenues. So, anyway, hopefully this Johnson project will help them out.
Any questions for Kirk?
Kirk, don't you pump back to McClellan Street? All the way back to McClellan?
Well, it's not
Down here?
pumping, it's gravity.
Or gravity, it goes.
Yes, correct,
be-
yeah.
So it goes to McClellan Street from
Right.
here.
And now that they've actually interconnected that district with their Mountain District, you know, we probably have water going back into the Mountain District as well, you know, township water, from Cox. Not from any other point that we could see, because that's one of the things we looked at, because we are now connected, and I believe it's now 3 points. The two districts, the groundwater and the well water districts, are connected by pressure reducing valves that are normally closed. They only open up if there's a high demand, such as a fire or flushing a hydrant or something. In fact, we just put a new one in last year on South Vanderbilt. But those, they're not opening, you know, they're not normally. So,
One guy was just saying, lives in that district, oh, his tummy went, oh, our water is great. I said, yeah, it's township water, that's why.
right. Well, yeah, so this contest, or event, I should say, it was township water, it was not city water in the Cox District, so.
Clarify that, good.
And speaking of that, actually, another thing's happening, the well operator just finished our water system monitoring. There's like annual monitoring, and then there's actually monitoring that's on a more infrequent basis. There's a whole set of tests that the DEQ had said several years back that we didn't have to do, because we were a consecutive system with Marquette. So the city of Marquette actually had to take some water samples in the Cox District in the township. Just this year, the DEQ changed their mind and said, well, you do have to take samples, these samples in that district. So, and there was a deadline, which was actually, I believe the samples had to actually be done by August 30th. So anyway, those got done. Although there are some issues there as well with the state in terms of, it all goes down to a lab, and the lab is, you know, I don't know if it's understaffed or what, but our first actually, one of our rounds of samples arrived like 2 hours. He got 24 hours, you know, and they were on ice, and they got there, supposedly got there, but they were like 26 hours or something. So they rejected the samples. But, and then there was a problem getting bottles at one point too. You know, that's where the bottles, the sample containers come from, and you know, that took like 6 weeks. So anyway, we're doing our best.
Okay. Anything else for Kirk? Good deal. Okay, thanks.
So I assume the asset management is me too?
I didn't know if you were gonna, I was gonna ask Randy who's gonna do that. You
I
can
assume
cover
so.
it. Yeah, I didn't know if it was your asset management or.
Yep.
Okay,
I mean, that's what I'm going to talk about is, so
Yeah.
basically, we have 2 programs going, one for wastewater and one for water. We had actually applied for a grant in 2013, so we had a pretty good budget for wastewater. And actually, to apply for the grant, which I actually was collecting quotes and gathering cost information, which that's what the grant was based on. So basically, the way it works is that's your project, and that was 90% grant funded, so we had to come up with a 10% local match. So the grant, which actually we didn't actually, we qualified right off the bat, but there were so many applicants that were complete and met the deadline that they decided they were going to dole it out by lottery over 3 years. So we ended up being lottery number 3. So we just got it like late last year. So we've got 3 years to complete that part. I'm hoping to get that actually done before the end of next year. But anyway, so initially the project was like $224,000. So therefore our local match would have been something like 22,000. So, but what's happened is it's been 4 years now since I was getting those costs. So lots have changed. One thing that changed was the contractor that I was going to hire to do an assessment of the mains and the manholes. Basically the cost went up. So what happened is the well, two things happened. One was the required amount of mains that I had to assess, which was basically over 20 years. So 4 years go by and suddenly I've got a bunch more mains that I got to assess. But also the contractor, basically the manager of that company passed away. And so he's been replaced. It was a subsidiary of another company. So the owner's son basically took over. And so what I've been doing is negotiating, you know, basically today's prices. So what happened is essentially that particular segment, which was the biggest part of the cost, was $100,000 more than previous. So, but that doesn't change the grant amount. So in other words, they're only going to grant up to, you know, the $202,000 that they initially said they would. So what I've been doing is trying to shuffle things around, and another thing that's changed is the software licensing situation has changed quite a bit. So what I did is, first of all, the first thing I purchased was a data collector, and that cost is still the same, but I'm splitting that cost with the water fund, because essentially, you know, I don't want to have two different asset management programs, you know, that are like totally different. So it just made sense to use the same hardware and software and format, you know, for both. The software, initially I was going to go for a server-based software, which I could still do, but that would cost me an extra $20,000. So I'm going with like an online subscription now, which saves that $20,000. So there's still, you know, it's just basically it's going to cost me actually not that much more than it would have anyway with the server or the software annual charges, service fees. So, and the software's still the same, but I was going to charge all of it to wastewater before, but so I split that cost as well. And I'm still negotiating with the sewer contractor. I think we're pretty close to final cost. And all the there's a second software vendor that I have to deal with as well. So we're also pretty close to an agreement on that. So the bottom line is we're probably going to spend more than, well, we're definitely going to spend more. I don't know many other ways to cut, you know. So, but it'll be worth it in the end. So basically where we are right now, we've started on water primarily. We've been focusing on water because that's due by the end of the year. So right now we're close to the data collection. So we're creating inventory, which is processed into a map. And that's through GIS. And that's one of the purchases I just made. I purchased 2 licenses because the licensing situation changed as well. You used to be able to buy concurrent licenses. So now it's got to be an individual standalone license. So I bought 2 of those. One of those will be for Isaac. So he'll be upgraded, you know, over what he's got now. So now there's like the GIS software in the office. It's like a basic. So now we're upgrading to like a standard model, which only means that you can do more stuff with it. So so I would say based on I would say that that part is like 90% done, the data collection. So it's the inventory, build the inventory. So it's dropped in the GIS, so that gives you the location. That goes dropped into a map, and so that'll all ultimately end up on field laptops for the work management portion of the project, which is going to be great for record keeping, and just going to be generally more efficient and easier on everybody involved. So basically that leaves, after the inventory, the criticality assessment, which is basically, I've got to look at every one of our assets, and you have to determine the possibility of failure, and then the how critical would that failure be. So, so that has to be done on each one of our assets. So we're probably going to have close to like 1,000 assets when
I
all
was
said
gonna
and
ask you
done.
that.
And then we're required to have a level of service, a statement of level of service. Those will be goals, which I'm going to get you folks involved in. So basically, we have to. The whole point of this is to make better financial decisions, based on, actual information. It's a lot of work to get to that point, but the long-term goal is to just to be better. You can forecast maybe a little bit better on what you should be replacing or upgrading. It's a little bit easier to keep a handle on the maintenance, So, but the assets is going to, it's going to include things like what level of service are we telling the public that we are going to provide. So, things like obviously we got to maintain compliance with state and federal requirements, but above and beyond that, we got to have some kind of goal in terms of, service won't be disrupted for more than, 8 hours or whatever, or service problems will be responded to within 2 hours. But it also includes things like, people are assets as well. So, I'm going to suggest things like our service works should have a certain level of certification, and we should dedicate X number of hours, to maintain that certification, which is just going to improve, the service to everybody. Just a list of things like that. But that'll be something that I'd like your input in as well, as representatives of the public. So, and then after that, we have to update the capital improvements plan. So we've had one, and that's actually, we've been doing that for quite some time. So there might be some tweaks that I have to do to that. And I can already tell you that I'm making some changes already per the proposed budget that I think you've already looked at, or maybe not. But it has more to do with the improvements type projects, not the replacement projects. So in other words, we've completed part of what we wanted to do, so that comes off. But I'm making adjustments to some of the other things. I've had to add something, well, on the sewer side anyway. And I've also adjusted some of the things I think are more critical now. So I'm shortening, instead of a 20-year, you might go down to 10 or even less. So changes like that. But in terms of asset management, the impact will be, and it probably won't be too great initially, but the idea is to assess the life of every asset and the associated costs. So how long do we think it's going to last, and what's it going to cost to either extend that life or even to just maintain that life. So I don't anticipate any huge changes right off the bat, because this is, I've been to a couple of workshops on DEQ asset management, basically put on by the guy that's in charge of this. He's been doing this for 30 years. So I think I've got a pretty good handle on what they're looking at. But it's based on Safe Drinking Water Act, which is, basically law. But there's still the DEQ interpretation. So what they're saying is, the goal is they want to get started. So you have to implement a program. But it's not going to be like, okay, at the end of the year, we're going to have asset management and I can go home. You know, it's going to change every year because you have to keep filling in the gaps. Conditions change, things change. So it's going to be a continuous thing. One change, for example, would be it's extremely hard for water pipes. How do you assess the condition of water pipes? Now, there is technology to do that, but it costs money. So you can actually, I've had a couple of webinars, you know, just looking at things like that. It's fascinating, but again, it costs money, so you have to kind of weigh that. But it's something, my point being, that might be something we could add in the future. You know, just a more comprehensive way of looking at things. So, because not only does technology improve, but the materials improve. You know, the things that we're installing today really are better than what was installed 30, 40 years ago. You know, so, and I would see that continuing. So that's asset management in a nutshell. A big nutshell.
Yes. Any questions for Kirk? Okay, very comprehensive. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Took another one off the agenda. Okay. Oh, this work session, okay. So we really didn't have anything for community linkage. I had mentioned the panhandling, but,
I have something to say.
do you? Sure.
I had several comments on our roads, how happy they are with with all our new roads and that. And just hard to believe, some of the person, it's just hard to believe it can be like this. So that was good. We still have a problem with drainage. I think we'll take a look at that at a different time as far as more anytime we do anything with the roads, I think that's going to become a bigger cause of it, a big problem with it, so we have to solve that problem. I just think if we did it wrong this time, but panhandling, it's a big issue. I think I said last time I attended that meeting for the homeless and that, and it's a problem. The panhandlers, it's not going to go away until we make some changes. We don't allow them to do it. I've spoken to several people about trying to hire people to do work for them instead of panhandling. And I just talked to Chief Zybert about that because he is at the same thing. That he's a presenter at the homeless thing. And he couldn't even get anyone to work for him. So if we don't, they're allowed to be there. If they're on private property, and call the sheriff and he'll come and get them out of there. On the right of way, they're allowed to be there. But if we don't, we've got to know panhandling thing, that's something different. I think the homeless, and you know, right off the bat here, I think they should be able to give back a little bit. Because when you take money, just throw it at a problem, you don't solve it really. You know, there's something, and they think that they could find a place to house these people into a house instead of laying behind different businesses or sleeping on the steps somewhere else. And someone said it's going to be awful expensive. Well, if you break it down, the hospital bills out $1 million a year just for the servicing them people, for the homeless. Then you got the jails expense, you got the courts expense, you got public works to clean up after them, you got downtown development staff going around cleaning up after them, the loss of business that people aren't comfortable going. If you have a bunch of homeless there, they're not comfortable in going there. So we have to find a solution to this. And panhandling is, well, never done it yet, not there yet. But they're making money at it. I mean, they're making more than $10 an hour or $15 an hour. You know, they can stand there and they can make good. Being a person that collects money for the Lions and different other organizations, You know, people got a big heart. They're always willing to give, especially in this area up here. And these people are from Florida before the hurricane, lower Michigan, Wisconsin. That's where they can document all these people from. And so I just think we have to do something about that. And I don't know the answer. Like I say, we're willing, I donate to the warming shed and stuff like that too. And you go down there and them people are a heck of a lot younger than I am. And I'm out there picking up highways and stuff like that too. Just like all of us, we all do different things for the community. Well, I think it's time that they could pay back a little bit. They should feel better about what they're doing, feeling better about themselves. But, I don't know. That's all I have to say about it.
Problem. Jason said he would put an ordinance sample together, sample ordinance, and have us look at it if we're interested in pursuing that. Anybody else have anything to share, what you're hearing from the community? John?
I didn't, announced from Senator Stabenow's office, along with her fellow senator, was that they published a release indicating that 2 Michigan townships were selected to receive a federal grant to aid the purchase of additional fire equipment. I didn't see anything published on that, but I did get it on an email out of the senator's office. Of the 2 townships in Michigan named ultimately to receive these funds, one of them was our township. So we'll be looking forward to getting more information on it. But it noted that the monies for ultimately to be received to aid in the purchase of fire equipment exceeded $90,000, which is something for us to look forward to and get more notes on it. I thought it was a positive thing, although quietly done. It was a positive thing that we ought to feel real good about.
Ron didn't mention anything about that. Do you know anything
Maybe,
about it?
maybe,
That's the radio grant.
Oh,
The grant
he
that
said it was for a fire truck, or did I mishear?
Fire equipment.
Oh, equipment, okay.
oh no, not the radio equipment. This was different than that.
Yeah, it's the same grant. It's the aid to firefighters grant, and what we're using it for is to replace the 800 radios.
We'll check on that. I mentioned it to our fire department chief. He's going to look into it.
Isn't that the one that Rob wrote?
Pardon?
I thought that was a grant that Rob Cochran wrote.
All I know was it was an announcement that was not. I didn't see it published anywhere.
Okay.
All I saw was on an email.
Basically an email.
You got that too? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else to share? I did have a hockey coach catch me at a dinner the other night, or Friday night. I don't know who he is, but he didn't want to give me his name. He'd had a couple cocktails, so he was feeling pretty nice. But he said, "You know, I've been following you, the township, for quite a few years." He says, "You had a rough patch there about 10 years ago." And I know, and he would give me half sentences. Yeah, you know, when that, yeah, and the super, yeah, and recall, yeah, you got through it. You got through it. He says, "You're doing good stuff. Tell your board, you're doing good stuff. Keep it up." So I thanked him, and he left. So that's the only thing I've heard from the public lately. But that was good. Okay, we don't have an annual plan of work yet, so we can cross that one off. in the budget work session schedule. Randy put something together on that already.
Well, not your actual schedule. Now it's time for the board to establish when it is you want to have your work schedules. You will have your final recommended budget by next Friday, the 29th, to you. You have received a preliminary predicated upon what we're forecasting the revenues will be. There are still a couple of pieces of revenue that we don't have good figures on, but those will be wrapped up before the 29th, and you will have a complete new packet with my recommendations as well as all of the individual department recommendations and an updated final recommended balanced budget for you to consider at your work sessions. The issue now is we need to determine when it is that you want to schedule your work session so we can get those published. Just a quick rundown on where we are, and it was earlier in the consent agenda, but for the public's knowledge, the fire department has said several times they're concerned about where they are with their budget, and it's very tight and things such as that, and it is. All of our budgets are tight. At the end of August, which is what's being reported in this packet, finances as of the end of August, we're about 66.5% of the year is gone by, and where we're at right now, the general fund is at 67.8%, which is very close. The fire fund is actually slightly below at 63%. So they've had a very busy first part of the year, but they're still right on track and where they should be in the budget going forward. And then our other fairly active and large non-enterprise fund budget is the township improvements budget, and that's about 55% right now, 55.5%. And that's where the road funding is at, and that is where we're looking for some additional, better finite information right now. It's at 55% of the budget simply because some of the billings haven't been processed yet. So we project that we are very close to exactly where we need to be on the budget. And as you'll recall, the way that whole process was set up with the road project to accelerate everything within 3 years to get it all done and then pay it off over 15 years. We're a little upside down at the front end where we catch about halfway through and then go forward. So we'll be subsidizing some of that out of the general fund, and that you'll see that in the 2018 budget as well. In other words, the revenue from the the revenue from the 1.5 mills does not yet equal what the draw on the bond is. And we're catching up on that. So the general fund will be subsidizing that for a few years until we get into the maintenance part of the budget and spending less money a year, bringing in the same amount from the taxes for that 15-year period. So you'll see that in the 2018 budget. But that will be to you by the 29th, and be ready then to start your budget work sessions at whatever point you decide you want to do those. That's what I would be asking for you to do, is to establish what your budget calendar is so we can get those advertised for the public.
So do we have certain nights or days that are not going to work or will work, or what's everybody's schedules like? Just give me a rough idea.
Question.
Yes.
I think last year we looked at the different budget, we put them in sequence and that,
Mhm.
which ones we wanted to go with through first. Some of them were shorter, so it took less time in that. We could do it right at tail end of a budget of our regular meeting, and others we had to have a work session for. And I think the Public Works was actually 2 sessions last year, if I remember right.
Public Works is probably the most active with the water, wastewater, solid waste, the one that most directly impacts most residents every month. You'll see your utility bill every month. You don't see that with the fire fund. You don't see that with the general fund as much. Typically, what has happened in the past is that it normally started early with the fire department and the general fund to get through those, and then spent most of your time talking with the issues with regard to the enterprise funds. And basically the enterprise funds are a little bit different because they are set up differently. The enterprise funds are established that they are full cost recovery funds. So in other words, the full cost of that operation has to be received from the users of the system. The fire fund is somewhat different in that it's an across-the-board millage, but it doesn't fluctuate. Itself doesn't fluctuate. It's basically a fixed amount. Same thing with the general fund. It's a fixed amount adjusted by Headley, but it doesn't fluctuate very much year to year, other than through growth. The enterprise funds fluctuate based upon use. And as Kirk was mentioning, when those years when you have and Kirk is still here and he can expand on this if he wants, but in those years where you have a very dry season, your water usage goes up, which drives your cost down. And it's an inverse relationship that people have a hard time recognizing. So in those years when you sell a lot of water, the rates are lower. In those years like this year that were very wet, not many people watered their lawns, not many people watered their gardens. Use was way down, which means your fixed cost is up. So your rates have to go up to address that. Your fixed costs in the ground don't change. They're there. And they're covered by the rates, and they're covered by sales. So that's that inverse relationship that's difficult for people to understand. Why this year the rates are up, next year the rates are down. It's based upon use in the actual draw that is made upon the system. So you'll see some of that fluctuation, and that usually results in the longest discussion in your budget process.
So,
I think basically you're going to see, and you've probably seen it already in the initial documents that you got, the budgets are very close. The 2018 budgets are very close, if not almost exact, to what the 2017 budgets were. The only piece that we don't know right now, the two pieces that we don't know. Number one is we don't know what the health insurance costs are going to be. We won't know that until sometime in October. Second thing that we don't know is we do have one bargaining unit that's open for collective bargaining. We don't know how that's going to impact the health insurance as yet. But it should not be significant.
Randy?
October is a 5 Tuesday month, so I would recommend we could do the Tuesdays we don't have a board meeting. So the 10th, 24th, and Halloween. It would
We
do-
get to dress up then for Halloween too.
As Scrooge.
And I would recommend, like we did it last year, like the first one, general fund, and then, like that. That would make much more sense, and we kept it to 2 hours or less. That was a lot
What are the
better.
dates? I heard days.
October 10th is a Tuesday. They're Tuesdays. 10th, 24th, 31st, and then we avoid. The 17th is not a good night for me because I have election issue.
I
meeting
won't
that
be
night.
there on 31st.
Yeah, I would suggest that you probably don't do the 31st.
Or we could do
Halloween
Monday
night.
of that week or something
Monday.
maybe. And that puts us in the November, and then we're in pretty good shape where we're going.
You had previously on some of the board meeting nights, you had done one for an hour or 2 hours, either before or during the board meetings, and that seemed to work okay. The fire department, I don't think is going to take you very long. The one thing you will notice in the fire department budget, different from the preliminary that you got as of just yesterday. In fact, we added another line item in the fire budget to be able to isolate the revenues that come from the ambulance response. So we'll be able to correlate cost to revenue. So that'll be a little bit different. So there'll be some tweaking on that, but not anything really significant. The bottom line isn't going to change much.
Well, my suggestion is because we're going to get it on the 29th, it'd give us a week anyway to look at it for the 10th to start anyway, and then I would say the 10th, 24th, and maybe the 30th, and then we can do some in November with our board meetings.
What are the times are we talking about?
Whatever's convenient, like 6 o'clock,
In the morning? Good.
not in the morning.
I think that's good.
Either,
It's a start, and it's following what happened last year. 6 o'clock's a fair time to start.
6 to 8, and then, we might not be here, warn the public, we might not be here till 8 o'clock, but we'll be here at 6, so.
Bernie?
As the manager said, the fire department probably is going to be the easiest one when you come down to it. It's pretty well straightforward in that. So.
General fund's going to be very close too. You're not going to see much difference in the general fund.
So if you're talking about, say, the 10th, we might, if we can start with the fire department and then have the general fund setting out there, if we able to get through the fire department relatively quick and move right into the general fund and that too, so.
So the 10th, if that's amenable to the board, would be the general fund, or fire department / general fund. 2 hours, like 6 to 8, I guess, is that amenable? And then the 24th, I guess, finish up on the general fund, and then maybe start the public works. I can't see the general fund going more than 2 meetings.
Shouldn't.
And then on Tuesday, the 24th, would be the same time, 6 to 8.
Do we want to, so Kirk has a feel, like start with water or start with wastewater?
I think we usually start with solid waste, and, because that's gonna be probably the shortest budget. And
Maybe
then,
10 minutes.
yeah, and then move into water, and then wastewater.
So solid,
Will be public works, but
Is there a reason we're doing all these on a Tuesday?
because he suggested it.
unless you want it
That's why I asked for input.
What's a 5 Tuesday month, so.
He just wants to
Tuesdays,
blow them off.
Tuesdays don't work that well. Mondays, Wednesdays.
Well, Monday, it doesn't matter to
Tuesdays
me.
and Thursdays are not good days.
Monday's a bad day for me.
Thursdays, doesn't have, I don't have a problem, I just suggested Tuesdays.
Wednesdays?
Wednesday's fine.
What's the date for
Wednesday's
Wednesday?
fine. Just throwing dates out there.
Wednesdays in October, the 5th, 12th, 19th, 26th.
No, 4th,
4th,
11th,
18th,
and
25th.
25th.
Wednesdays, I'm sorry.
How about the 10th at the start? Is that okay for you, Dave, or no? Or is that not good? Not good. I don't have a problem with Wednesdays.
Wednesday, the 11th?
You got a planning on the 11th.
Yeah, that's gonna be a problem.
Well, not if you use
Well,
the community room.
yeah, but we have a member on the planning commission that's on the
We
board.
Start a little earlier.
You could do 5 to 7.
Fine with me.
5 to
Good with
7th
me.
on the 11th?
I just,
I don't have a
Pick-
problem.
Let me know so I can get them written down right the first time around.
Why? I'm just crossing them off.
And then the 18th, do you have a, is that a,
On 11th from 5 to 7?
Wednesday, the 11th. Fire, and then general fund. And then jump to the 25th. You want to stick with Wednesdays?
I don't have a problem with that. 6 to
Okay.
8, no, that's another planning commission night, so 5 to 7.
So we'll finish general fund. And then go into public works, starting with solids,
That last date you just said.
and then water.
25th.
Is the 18th 5 to 7?
no, 11th,
It's the 11th.
11th,
25th.
25th.
Wednesday.
What about the 18th? We're not doing it?
5 to 7?
No,
No.
Nothing on the 18th?
no.
Okay.
And we can do this, we can do those 2 to start, and then at our first meeting in November, which will be on a Wednesday, we can see where we're at and move from there.
So just book October, you're saying, and see where we are?
Unless you want to book November, I don't have a problem with
Book
it.
it.
Why do we skip the 18th? We know.
He was doing every other week.
I have to get excused for
I'm
the
just
25th.
wondering what the logic was.
Well, we can do the 18th, but it's,
But if we do the 18th, skip the
We
25th.
might not be able to do the 18th. Jack Bergman might want to come that night and spend some time with us.
Who?
Jack Bergman,
On the 18th?
with the public, yes. But I'll know more. His secretary emailed me that today.
Where did you get your schedule?
18th and the 25th, I won't be here.
Okay.
about the November 1st, that's a Wednesday.
I'll be out of town.
You want to try a Thursday? Like the 2nd of November?
Yeah, it's the same problem with
Oh,
Thursdays.
What
okay.
a Friday.
The 11th, I may be on the road to Lansing. Supreme Court's on the 12th.
Yeah.
No, we're not gonna get everyone at every meeting.
No, and,
Yeah, but that's general fund. He should be here.
well,
The 11th is not,
Yeah, you need to go the night before.
Yeah.
We're not doing the 11th? Or you're just gonna do the fire?
Friday the 13th, you want to start there?
That's not a good night for me. We got hockey games that night.
Give it
Treasurer
up.
Johnson will be gone
Hey,
too.
we'll just sign the budget. What the heck?
Why don't we all just write down our appointments and then?
Monday the 9th.
Mondays are tough for me.
I have a meeting on Monday night tonight.
as of now, for the record, as far as I'm concerned, I've written down October the 11th from 5 to 7. Is that correct?
Yes.
I thought we were gonna change
October
I
the
think-
25th from 5 to 7. Is that correct?
So far,
Yes.
yes.
I thought we were gonna change the 11th because the manager was gonna be gone?
Yeah, well, that's why I said so far.
Unless you wanna just do the fire that night.
Can do the fire. Ron can come in that night.
What else do we have that's small? We could do the small things on the general fund. The clerk and the treasurer and keep your administration part of it for another
For the
night.
25th.
That way you really wouldn't miss much. Or we skip the
But
week
if you
of
want,
the 9th.
if you want to keep the 11th,
You wanna
that,
do a
that
noon?
means, you would have had the budget in your possession for a week. If you had any, if board members have any questions, you could shoot the questions to me, and I could answer to all board members the answer to the questions on that budget. On that, and then you could go forward with, say, for instance, the fire department budget that evening. I'll be back the night of the 12th. I mean, I'll drive back, we'll be driving back right after the hearing. It's only an hour for the hearing.
I can tell you the clerk's budget for elections and clerk's budget is not that long.
Treasurers isn't either.
Oh, but at least we still have to get it looked at. Either that or do I hate to do the noon ones or something or earlier, because then the public can't participate. If they want to try to come between 5 and 7 or 6 and 8, then they can't if we do it at noon. I mean, it's televised so they can see it, but I don't want to have the important ones inaccessible to them. Well, what do you think? Leave the 11th and just
Yep.
check with Randy if you have questions? We can always carry it over to the next one.
Right. Do the fire on the 11th,
Mhm.
get that out of the way.
Yep, and then start the
And-
general
and
fund.
general fund.
We can do the little ones first.
How's the agenda looking for the next couple months? Is there a night we can do it after after the meeting? Have a short meeting and then take care of
Yeah.
the short one?
We don't, a lot of our agenda things come up like Wednesday or Thursday. It's right before, usually right before the meeting, or the,
That's right.
the deadline, that stuff falls in our lap.
I think trying to schedule it on a night when you have the agenda, our regular meeting agenda, is inviting a disaster. I don't think the social community obligations are such that we can't keep the two that we've picked. And then pick another date now and let the other social obligations dates get changed.
Is there anything in that third week of October that would work? 18th to the 20th? Or 17th to 20th? 16th to 20th?
Just the 18th right now is an if. We have a meeting the 17th.
We have a planning meeting on the 18th.
Correct. 20.
Board meeting on the 17th.
Thursday is not good. Dave, on the 19th?
No, that'd be fine.
Would that work?
Go ahead and do it.
Thursday the 19th?
I'll
Thursday
be
night.
I'll be out of town, but that's fine.
Okay, well, it
You
doesn't make
lose
sense.
3 then.
-2.
How about Wednesday, November 1st? Wednesday, November 1st.
About Friday the 20th for 2 hours, 5 to 7.
I'm available for that.
Randy doesn't want Fridays.
Well, I'll be out of town that day, but you can do what you want to do.
Wednesday the 1st?
How about Saturday?
Wednesday the first be a planning meeting.
But that's fine, we can,
5 to 7?
yeah.
Which day?
Wednesday the 1st of November?
5 to 7?
5 to 7.
Okay.
Yes.
That'll be, yeah. Whatever we don't finish, we'll start with solids and water, and then this will be the carryover water and wastewater. Yes.
And we have a township board meeting on the 8th, and I think we could schedule it from there.
During the meeting,
Yeah.
even if we wanted to set an hour, we can
Would
decide.
someone like to come up, let me know where we're at after we made all these changes? Now I'm understanding.
I'll give a summary here when we're
On,
done.
on the 8th, you want it to be the 5 to 7 again? No, that's that's not a board meeting,
Which one?
the 8th.
8th of November is a board meeting.
Yeah, we switched that tonight.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right, we did.
I think we got 3 to start, and we'll
Yeah,
go
let's
from
leave
there.
that.
So,
So
I
tell
will,
us, Randy.
I will move to schedule budget work sessions Wednesday, October 11th, from 5 to 7, and that'll be for fire department and start of the general fund. Wednesday, the 25th of October, from 5 to 7, that'll be general fund, and if we have time, we'll start public works. I'll let Kirk know. I don't think. And then Wednesday, November 1st, 5 to 7, that'll be public works. So that's a motion.
Second.
Does that work?
I'll be gone the 1st, but have at it.
Can't get everyone
No,
at every meeting.
no.
so.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. If it doesn't work, we can change it. Just like the budget,
We just have to have it done by what date and
December.
It has to be done, I believe, 15 days, Randy?
Yep, I had, you could still follow the original schedule for the public hearing and adoption. Public hearing would be at your first meeting in December,
right.
adoption at your second on the 19th.
Okay. All right, we already talked asset management. We didn't pull anything out. We did our staff reports. We don't have 3 and 4. Public comment. Anything to share, Mike? All righty. Meeting wrap-up. What do we have for announcements? Anything? Randy?
Some dates for elections, October 10th, which is a Tuesday. You have until 4 o'clock, October 10th, to register for the November election, which is the 7th. If you're after 4 o'clock, you can't vote in that election. Saturday, November 4th, clerk's hours will be noon to 2 in this building. I'll be available to give out or take in any absentee ballots for that. And the election is November 7th, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that's all I have. There is a class coming up for election workers if anyone's interested. Talk to either myself or Lois, and we'll get you headed in the right direction. October 17th at 4:30 p.m. will be a public accuracy. Myself and Lois will do the testing of the election equipment, 4:30 on October 17th. And at 6:15 that evening, we'll have the election committee meeting, which will approve the election inspectors for the November election. That's all I have.
That's a lot. Any other announcements from anybody? Okay, managers report.
You do have printed manager's report. We've talked a little bit about the budget already. That was on the manager's report. I think probably the most important to the public that currently is on the manager's report is that we are now in officially the hunting season for the fall, which means that we will have interaction between folks pursuing other activities such as hiking, biking, walking dogs, things such as that, along with those that are hunting. Bear season is open. Small game season is open. Deer season opens October 1st, the bow season. So be cautious in the woods. Be cautious out and about, and be aware that there may be conflicts. So just make yourself conspicuous. Wear bright colors, things such as that. And don't be startled if you come across people in the woods and on the trails with firearms or other forms of hunting items.
Any questions for the manager? Okay. Any motions we had tonight?
Yeah, reviewing of the motions. We did, first motion of the evening was consent agenda approved by roll call. Second motion of the evening was the approval of the agenda as presented. Third motion of the meeting was to set our budget schedule, which I'll publish shortly. And that's it. I don't have any action items for the board or any members.
Okay. Anything anybody's thinking for future agendas?
I did keep it off this agenda, but I'd like to keep it on an agenda that's light for discussion, is future water project. And that might be a good thing for budget time.
Sounds good.
So I don't know if that needs to go into the agenda or into the budget work sessions, because they kind of tie together, the future water.
Yeah, because we'll have to look at CIP anyway, so.
In strategic agenda, that should go, because we need to create a new one.
Yeah, I'm waiting actually for Susan, strategic, okay, to help me figure out the calendar for next year. And she said that'll happen during our budget discussion.
Okay.
So that's where we'll plan our year out, and the agenda should fall right into it. What do we want to talk about in January, February, March? Each meeting should be kind of planned out. So that'll be kind of nice. Anything else for future agendas? This is kind of looking at next month. So, board member comment. Anybody want to? Dave?
A couple issues for updates. First was the road rehabilitation project. It is substantially complete. We are doing some punch list items and finishing up the last little bit of slope restoration. This might carry over into the couple days next week, Monday or Tuesday, but that will complete the road project for our 3-year plan. And the tentative numbers look like we're slightly under budget, but it's close.
Does that mean the contingency's been used and everything, or?
It's very,
like
very
the final.
preliminary. We're waiting for the final numbers to get in on that, the final billings from the contractors. The Planning Commission, there was a number of issues in front of the Planning Commission last meeting, last Wednesday. The first issue was driveway access onto Northwood Road from the proposed or the recently approved site plan for the Subaru dealership. That was a public hearing that was passed. And there was a number of public hearings that were kind of combined into one, but they had to be addressed separately, and that was on the text amendments for the zoning ordinance. The one text amendment was had to do with the definitions section, and one of the things that was removed from that was the reference to Airbnb and vacation rental by owner, and they were combined into one definition for short-term rentals. That text amendment passed. and that was the definition section. Another text amendment was the design standards, the pedestrian access. There are very few comments received about that. None of the developers had showed up to comment on it. That passed. The next area was for tiny homes. It was in section Article 15 of the zoning ordinance. That came under quite a bit of discussion. A lot of residents from primarily Bishop Woods was at the meeting. And there was a suggestion that we exclude Bishop Woods from the inclusion from the tiny home ordinance. There was a considerable discussion at the planning commission level, and there was a motion to move that tiny homes text amendment forward. It failed 2-2. The concern expressed by those voting against it was that to exclude Bishop Woods, Huron Woods, and Oak Hill from the tiny homes ordinance was tantamount to discrimination, and we decided that legal should look at that wording before we decided to move in that direction. And with that portion of the tiny homes text amendment failing, we tabled the balance of that, which was Article 16, until the October 11th meeting. Hopefully we will address both the failed tiny homes amendment and the tabled tiny homes amendment on October 11th. It'll be another public hearing.
Did you not, maybe I misunderstood, kind of put the whole tiny homes on hold until you see what the legislature's gonna do?
That is short-term rentals is on hold, waiting to see what the legislature's gonna do.
Okay. So you will have a public hearing on the 11th.
Back on the 11th for the, and that is assuming that we get the text worked out on our next meeting, because it'll have to be noticed if it's gonna be, it's gonna actually happen on the 11th.
But you don't have a meeting tomorrow night?
No.
Next week either. No, Jason and Isaac are gone next week.
Yes, I think he's,
Not that you have to have them there, but it's a good idea.
yeah, we're still shooting for an October the 11th public hearing on the tiny homes portion of that. And I think all we're looking for, and I don't know if you've got it yet, Roger?
Excuse me, I just received it a couple days ago, but I've issued 2 opinions on it. The tiny homes one is much closer to a final recommendation than the short-term rentals one. That one needs some massive work, and the recommendation is going to be essentially to sit tight until we see what the legislature does, at least in the immediate short interim.
Yeah, and that's on the short-term rentals, with tiny homes is very close.
Tiny homes is very close, I believe, on having something that, from a legal standpoint, that works.
So that's why we're going for October 11th on the next public hearing.
Okay.
I was, none of the passed that were recommended to the board for approval, they weren't on tonight's agenda, but I would think they'll get moved forward for the next agenda.
Okay, so we'll actually need to put those on the next agenda then, possibly. I mean, we'd hear from Jason or somebody if they're ready, but.
The 3 are ready, they were passed and recommended that the board adopt them, and the other one will not move forward yet until after the October 11th date. He didn't have them quite done yet.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't us.
It's tough when they have a Wednesday night meeting and
Deadline's Thursday.
Deadline's Thursday.
Yeah, that was the problem. I mean, he couldn't get it ready the next day.
All right, so why don't I put that on here so I don't forget to ask at least. Okay. Because it's usually a scramble. What do we got? What do we got? Are you done? It's 3 o'clock, it's noon. Okay. Any other board member comments?
I just have one question to Dave or Randy about the Vandenboom project. Was anything resolved with the resodding with, is everything done? If it is, I feel we got taken a little bit there by the way they did the job. Did you get a chance to look at that?
South Vandermoon?
Flip a coin?
Sure, go ahead, you haven't had much to say tonight.
Quiet one.
We did take a look at it. They did make some modification to protect the PRV from flooding and to direct the water out to the roadway. There's still a concern as to whether or not there was an appropriate amount of topsoil placed down before they put the sod down. So that's an issue yet to be taken up with the prime contractor. We have not paid for it at this point.
Good.
And we'll be looking for potentially modification of the charge and basically watch it, see how it functions, and if it doesn't function, bring them back and have them redo it.
Dave?
I did check a number, I was out and took a look at the site, and I did check a number of the areas that are in the drainage ditch proper, and those are staked, as they're supposed to be. There's staples in them.
None of the banks are stapled that I could find. I
I
couldn't.
could find a number of spots that were stapled.
You did? Farther south or?
Yep, farther south. And as it comes out into the flat where it's around the PRV valve, that is not staked. But it is staked again where it comes down to the collection basin on the other side.
Their
of
reasoning,
the driveway 725. They didn't believe erosion was an issue there because the water's been directed away from it. And I think it's just a matter of seeing if it works or it
The
doesn't.
roots.
And I think the big thing you got to remember there is it's not a front yard. It's not like
Right.
it's somebody's front yard. There's actually a line of trees there. It is county road right away. And
what about the box then over the,
that we haven't got a price on yet. It's very difficult to get price for anything this time of year with all the construction wrapping up.
that was not included in that?
No, it was
Okay.
not included.
Okay.
The contractor that did that was going to get us a price, but he's been able to get a price on it. So he just went ahead and did what he had.
Okay.
I pulled up a number of pieces of sod. I mean, there's topsoil there. I didn't go digging in to see how deep it was, but I mean, if you say there's less than 4 inches, then there's less than 4 inches. I don't remember reading 4 inches, but be that as it may, it's a matter of seeing how well it holds up and see if it takes root. And that's the big thing, is to get it to take root.
Right. Luckily, we've had enough rain that it hasn't just died, so I
Well,
looked
and
at
it's
it. It is
been-
greening up,
The
so,
rain is good in that it's been tested,
yeah,
and it's still all there.
it is.
And I am confident they did staple it quite well as you go further up the hill going south. The staples get fewer and farther between as you come north.
I would think as the water comes down, it's gonna collect more.
It's on the other side of the dams that they've got in there. And that last dam is there to move the water around the PRV valve box, which is where all the sod is. And which apparently it's doing.
It's not looking that bad. I will admit that, but I just didn't think we got.
And I agree that it looked a little rough, and if it was my front yard, I'd have been up in arms, but it's not a front yard, it's a ditch.
Yeah.
I think for a ditch, it looks fine.
As long as it does what it's entitled or expected to do, it'll be fine then.
How much are they responsible for?
Who's they?
The contractor who put it in? Who did it?
Associated subcontracted it.
Associated subcontracted it out.
But that's what we paid $12,000 to fix.
Yep.
And they're not responsible for any part of that?
Oh, they haven't been paid yet.
Oh, okay. I don't think we should do that, but.
Yeah, no, they haven't been paid yet, and we will be addressing, the list that they gave us and what our observations are.
Anything else? Need another motion then.
Move to adjourn.
Support?
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.